Okay, and we are live with ProPresenter Power Talks. And I am here. My name is Shake. I'm here with the ProPresenter Poppy, Steve Dirks, and we have a very special guest today. And the video that you just saw is a bit of a sizzle reel to let you know what this man is capable of, what he's done, and what he does on a weekly basis right here in Orlando, Florida. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Faith Assembly in Orlando. Today, our very special guest is none other than my good friend, Jonathan Perez.
Hey,
Jonathan,
hey,
what is up?
how's it going, guys?
Oh man,
Good.
we're
And
excited to
and
have you.
and Steve, what's
Awesome.
up
Thanks for having
also?
me.
Do what?
Steve, hi to you as well.
Well, yeah.
I
I
don't want
mean,
to just say hi to Jonathan, you know.
Jonathan's the man, he deserves
Jonathan's the
every
man.
last part of that. So,
Yeah.
huh.
I
Nice.
would hate to take credit for Jonathan's work and
Okay,
what
well then
he's
don't.
done.
Then just don't. Oh man.
Careful, because I have one embarrassing story about something you made once.
Oh no. I,
You probably won't even know what it
I
is,
have
to be
no
honest with
clue.
you.
I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
embarrassing things I've made
Uh,
over the years.
it's not what you think it is.
It's not. Oh boy,
I
it's one
can't
of those
I
like
can't even
I don't.
imagine. Now you have to say it.
Do you really want to know?
You tell me, do I really want to know?
It was a recap for a kids thing, and you put the song "Celebrate" in it. And I got pulled to the side after first service, and it was like, if you can't take that song out of that video, we're not playing it next service.
Wait, was it like celebrate? No, or
Yes,
celebrate good
it
times?
was.
Come on.
Yeah, that one.
What?
Yeah, yeah, it was hilarious.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I
you
have
ended
no
up
clue.
changing it. This was a long time ago.
Why'd they
Yeah,
not want
yeah.
This
celebrate?
was
Does it have a cuss word in there somewhere?
no, it's just
Uh,
HE
a
churches, we
secular
don't
song.
celebrate.
can't
We
have
don't
good
celebrate
times,
anything.
man. No good times
I
here, bro.
know.
Nope, against the
Funny,
Bible.
funny.
No, I'm just
Well,
kidding.
Jonathan, man,
But yeah, see, I told you you
tell
wouldn't
us
know.
about how you got into church production, what you do at Faith
Yeah,
Assembly, and then yeah, we'll get into it.
yeah. So that's cool. I'm the media director here. I've been here for 14 years now. I started off actually in the design world, doing all that. Worked at a publishing company for 6 years. Was a corporate employee. Kind of flew around a lot. We started having kids, and it was like, hey, I should probably look at changing careers. Got opened up a door here. I started off doing graphic design here, and then quickly, like 5 months later, became media director, and then had to hire on a graphics guy, and now I'm over the audio, video, lighting, and design team as well.
Oh,
So
awesome, man,
yeah.
dude.
Hmm.
So pretty much,
And and let me just say that what Jonathan and his team produce are as good as anybody on the planet. I mean, I love going to Faith because like as a person with a background in some of these things, whatever church you go to, you're always like picking out their flaws. When I go to Faith Assembly, it's like it's as close to perfect as you can get.
I
that's awesome.
appreciate that, man.
That's awesome.
A lot of team effort for sure.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to take credit for it,
Yeah, well
but
then don't. So,
Nice.
how many are
yeah.
on your team that you guys serve with at Faith?
Wow. There's probably, let me just think real quick. There's 12 of us that work here pretty much on a full-time basis now. We've got a couple openings coming up, and then lots of volunteers. We're probably somewhere in the, I think the last time we counted during our Christmas party, I think there was about 50 people on the invite list. That's between our social media team and
Right.
our online monitor team and our camera guys and everything else. So
Gotcha.
it's grown really fast
Mhm.
in the last year for
That's
sure.
awesome. Awesome. Man. Well, dude, we're talking ProPresenter today. And so, every week we
Yeah,
get on and try to just do some discussion around ProPresenter, how we can use ProPresenter to help visually enhance and communicate the gospel effectively. And that was kind of this whole idea was just birthed out of having a conversation to help churches. And so, man, I'm really thankful that you said yes and we're willing to come on, because really that's be our goal. It's like moving forward is to make this more of a community discussion, because we're all learning, we're all growing. And I know for me, I've learned things from watching other guys. Oh, you do that this way, or you can tweak that, and that helps me kind of enhance my craft. So, man, tell us
Yeah.
about like your workflow at Faith. Shake talked about the level of production and the excellence, like, wherever we want to go there, but the workflow and any things that you want to highlight about kind of what you guys do that maybe is different or, kind of standard that like helps set the bar for that. I'd love to hear that. And if you have anything else to
Yeah.
share in that vein, man.
Oh, that's cool. I think one of the unique things that we have as a team, I think, and I'm sure other people do it now as well, is that we're the production guys and the design guys are together. We're together in a room a lot. A lot of the guys actually are cross teams. So when we have production meetings and when we have design meetings, there's multiple guys that are actually in both meetings. So not just me. But I have them in the room, and then when we need somebody in there to have like a conversation about something, we call them over, and we'll throw it up in ProPresenter, and we'll go out in the room and look at it. And I think that's one of the things that keeps us at the level that we have. We're constantly having conversations. We're big into as an organization. If you guys have heard of the Table Group, Patrick Lencioni and his 5 dysfunctions of a team. That kind of model. There's a meeting. It's called the Meeting Advantage. We use that to kind of guide our meetings, not only on the executive level, but also throughout the organization. And that kind of helps us kind of like squash any kind of weird things. I mean, the other day we were just talking and we were doing a last minute video shoot. We were trying to just do something different, and one of the guys was like, well, I don't know, because the other guy said this. And I said, no, bring him over here. I was like, I want the best for this, and he wants the best for this. And then we both agreed, and the whole thing was just a quick, we just squashed any kind of rumination or any kind of, weirdness amongst the team, and just like, hey, everybody's wants the best. Let's see how we get there. And whenever there's an issue, we've been in executive team meetings, and it's like, hey, let's just bring that person in. Let's just figure it out now. And that's a little rare in an organization. So the first time it happens with people, it's odd. But you get used to it, and it's a great way to work, and it kind of helps drive what the mission is always. So when we think about something, it's like, is this going to help somebody encounter Jesus? If it doesn't, then we shouldn't be doing it. Is it going to actually do anything, for that goal? And if not, then we just kind of move on, and it helps us really clearly see, hey, should we put a lot of effort into this design? Should we put a lot of effort into doing this automation? If it's not going to work, if ProPresenter is going to crash, let's go a different route. No one will know if we didn't do it.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of.
Jonathan, are you insinuating then that you guys do have tech issues at your level?
Absolutely. This weekend, we had a panel just wig out an LED wall. We happened to have a set piece this weekend that was literally right below it. It was extremely hard to get to. So, I'm thinking, oh, it'll be a power reboot. So we reboot the screen. Oh, let's reboot the processor. We do that. It just didn't work. What's great about our leadership is that, everyone was in communication, and it's like, hey, there's just going to be 2 panels out. And that's it. It's either that or they're going to wig out. So we just, we powered them off, and that was it. We tried as much as we could before service to get it going, and it didn't work. But we tried again the next service in between, and it still didn't work. So anyway, we ended up fixing it today, which is Monday. Yeah, stuff like that happens all the time, and we just kind of go through it. If ProPresenter does crash for whatever reason, we know what to do around it. Hey, let's make sure we're coming up on black so that it's not distracting when stuff's rebooting. Or, hey, before we hit that video again, let's look at the properties. Is it trying to drive a 4K video, down a black magic card when it can't handle that? Is it trying to scale on the fly? Is it trying to, is it multi-channel audio that's just going down the wrong path? Let's reboot, the audio interface. Let's reboot the video interface. Let's just see what's going on. Let's unplug everything and just figure it out like that. And having that grace from the team, from the executive team all the way down, is also helpful because they just know we're trying our best. It's definitely not our intention to go,
Right.
hey, let's wait till the last minute, let's show up late. Like there's none of
Right.
that,
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it's
so
like it seems like you
yeah.
hit on something that's really key is like you guys are doing the best you can, but there still is technology at
Hmm.
play, and technology at play isn't perfect. And so like
Yeah.
I think people think, well, every week will go perfect. It's just the same thing you've always run. Well, people don't understand that, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the longer stuff runs, sometimes stuff starts to fail. So, like, yeah, installs are
Yeah.
hard because
Yeah.
they're new and they're fresh and there's issues with
Hmm.
that. But then you get things up and running and streamlined, and now you run for years and you're like, oh, I've never had a problem with that deck link card. Well, it's
Yep.
2 years old, or you've never had a problem with that decimator. It's
Mhm.
5 years old, and stuff just wigs.
Hmm.
And so having grace to understand that, like, we'll do the best we can and try to figure out the most like clear solution to present the gospel, but also the most like distracting, pull the distraction out of the way. So like I love what you said yesterday, like
Yeah.
telling the team like, hey, that wall will be like flashing. So I think it's less distracting to pull it. Like we're just going to pull it, and having
Yeah.
those conversations and explaining that, and like you said, having leadership to understand that understands that, I think sometimes is the key to the sauce of like in the moment when it's all going wrong. We don't want someone to be like, well, it sucks that it's going wrong. Yeah, we all agree that it sucks right now, but we're trying to
Yeah.
figure out what's the best way to like make this happen
Yeah.
that's going to be the least distracting and look like, that it wasn't a purposeful mistake that we're trying to just like, blatantly put in front of everyone. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And Shake, I think you were last time you were here, we had something go down where like something wasn't happening and I just made a call and you were like, you said something, you mentioned something, you were like, man, you just skipped it. And I was like, yeah, like no one in the congregation is
yeah,
gonna know. And we just moved on. Like that's it.
yeah,
Like we didn't have a countdown. Okay. Guess
yep,
what? The band's gonna start swelling and we're gonna
Yeah.
start
yep,
service. Like well, they'll figure
yep,
it out.
yep,
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's funny, and again, even as somebody who kind of knows some of the back end things, what always impresses me about you guys is that when something does go wrong, I can't even spot it out, you know, whereas, um, so if I can't see it, then I know that nobody else, 99.9% of the folks in the room are not going to see it.
That brings up an
cool.
interesting question, Jonathan. So, like, how have you
Hmm.
worked with for example, let's just down to like that particular situation. So, hey, I'm not going to play a video, I'm going to roll into a band. I think sometimes maybe for the churches we serve, that could be like way overthrowing. And like, I think it's a training thing for ProPresenter operators and our team to be like, hey, don't get freaked out by a change and be prepared to run and move with the
Hmm.
director. So, like, when you call a shot like that, um, how have you trained your team, communicated that in a way to be like, hey, you don't need to freak out. Like, hey, if I call to not do the countdown,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
skip and go to the next thing. Like we've prepped
Yeah.
it. You've got audience looks that are going to shift it. Like just roll and like do what's called. And how does your team like function together to try to make those calls as seamless as possible? Because those can sometimes be the most like, well, hold on, like we didn't do it, we didn't do the video, like
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I think the first thing is to know that, like, to let them know that no one's to blame on
right,
anything, Like,
Yeah.
stuff's gonna go wrong. Like, computers are computers,
yeah,
and they're just gonna do weird things, and gear's gonna happen, and to know that it's normal. And to say it out loud a
yeah,
lot.
that's good,
Like, even if it does go well, it's like, well, that's awesome. Like, nothing crashed today. Even if it's always
yeah.
perfect, just go, hey, sometimes it's going to go wrong. So have that expectation level that it's going to go wrong. And then just to do it calmly, like I say it all the time. People don't know that we were planning to do that. They don't have an order of service in front of them with the timesheets and everything. They
Yeah,
don't, they're
right.
not privy to that information. So we just have to keep going. And then what's great is, um, from front of house, it was where I usually am on Sundays, to up here in the control room to down at, service producing from the front row. We're all on comms, and that's just, even if it's the dumbest thing, just constantly having that communication. Hey guys, Pastor Johnny's about to walk up. Hey guys, this is about to happen. So that when you have that constant communication, then when you have a problem, it's like, well, yeah, we're always talking about
Right,
things. It's not just like this silence,
right.
silence, 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 and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, it's pandemonium. Like
Hmm.
there's no reason for it.
Right,
It's just like, okay, we always know. So hey, we're going to skip this. We're going to go to this.
Yeah.
And everyone goes copy, and then we're done.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, if they want me to say something to one of the band guys, I can do it from front of house and go, hey guys, we're just going to go right into this. And you know, Nick Shake, he's great about it. And then, you know, Pastor John, who's our worship pastor, is great about just, he can ride with it. He's got some stories too, actually, which is he's good about. He's been leading worship at his old church, not here, but at his old church, and they'll slip him a piece of paper and say, hey, pastor's not going to preach today. You're going to preach while he's leading worship. So like he knows how to roll with it.
Yeah.
So if he needs to extend something for 5 minutes, we've had we had a Father's Day thing. It was a Saturday night service, and we had a game planned right before the sermon, and we were going to have 3 dads come up, and they were going to compete, and a guy had a heart attack in the middle of the service, and they're literally working on him in front of the sound booth as worship is wrapping up, and it was like, this would be the most inappropriate time to have a game. So we called it, and I think it was Pastor Johnny called it, and then we all just communicated, and we went right into sermon, and you know, luckily the guy survived, and I see him all the time now. But but yeah, it's just one of those things. It's everyone's got to be flexible.
You tell him, many weeks afterward, we cut that game just for you, bro, just to make sure you were good.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we had him come up and play it next week. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that like I think that you're hitting on that like is key, is just like how can we, like, because there were even times where I was on staff full time with ProPresenter that I tried to set up stuff for failures like that. So when like we're gonna shift, setting up a stage display in the worship book, that I can type a note to the worship pastor on stage, like, and having some of those things prepped so that when things do go wrong, and you know, we're all talking together on comm, and whoever's leading the service producer who's calling the shot says, hey, we're gonna make a shift here. How have you talked through about how you're going to make that? Because that's something that I think sometimes in churches doesn't get discussed, is like, when things do go wrong, how do we do it? Because obviously you guys have had that conversation, and there's a flow, whether it's communication on comms and being able to go tell people, or like technology to communicate with people on stage, because otherwise, like, that's where pandemonium usually sets in, because there's been no communication. The people who are on stage who are like actually leading events don't know what's going on. It's just like mass chaos. And so like, it seems like you guys have had intentional like conversations about like, hey, when things go wrong, we'll handle it. And like, there'll be discussion points from different people on the team to make sure everyone's together on that. And you guys are continually discussing that. So that's really cool, man.
Cool.
Jonathan, what are some redundancy that you guys have kind of built into the system, like specifically for ProPresenter or for slides, lyrics, those sorts of things?
Yeah. So this kind of brings us to that whole transition of going from Pro 6 to Pro 7. You know, we always had 2 machines kind of running our center screen stuff, which is our main designed LED wall stuff. And then we have one that's just kind of our main that has fill and key send to our switcher, and you know, plays our videos and stuff. So when we were going to 7, you know, everyone was going, oh wow, you know, they took us to some back room somewhere and showed us all the stuff before it came out, and we're like, oh, that's cool. We can run the whole thing from one computer. And I was right away going, yeah, that's not cool if something goes down.
Right.
Like to drive multiple displays, like that just doesn't feel good. So we kind of keep those things separate. So if something goes wrong, or if, you know, let's say worship goes off a different direction, you know, I'm always like, hey, forget the side screens. Get it. You know, if you're gonna look for the song, look for it in the center screen. It's the biggest thing in the room, and then just move on. So just have that redundancy. Just going, okay, that's not important. This is. And then just going, okay. And then when Pastor Johnny became our lead pastor a couple of years ago, he's more technology savvy, so he wanted more of his, like, I think they call him I think they still call him blue notes here, because he highlights them in blue, but as far as like, he has on his confidence monitor certain things that he wants, like if there's a list of things or things like that. So that gave us another ProPresenter machine, so if something goes wrong, we can take that machine and take it wherever we want.
Okay.
So have that redundancy of going, okay, just take it from Pro 3 and throw it there. Or we can use this line to do this. And then having somebody that knows up here always is like, okay, if that goes wrong, I can take a straight cam feed and go straight to the screens if I just hit these 2 or 3
Right.
buttons. Or, we've walked in and a switcher's been dead right before service, and it's okay. Let's reroute this and go this route. And just knowing the routing of everything helps with like having a backup plan when something does go goofy.
So when you guys say
how many
three,
venues? Oh, go ahead.
let me just follow up real quick, Shay, because 3 ProPresenter
Mm-hmm.
machines. So one's feeding the center
Yep.
screen, which is an
Correct.
LED wall, right? And then your
Yep.
ProPresenter 2 is feeding your streams, which is Alpha Key.
Yeah, they're also LED walls
Oh,
too,
okay,
but
yeah,
yeah, they're just our line cut
yeah.
essentially.
So those would be what you're
Yeah.
displaying IMAG on, displaying lower thirds, all that stuff, and that's and through the switcher. And then ProPresenter 3 is your paster display. And all that is
Correct.
routed in your switcher, correct? So you run all that through your
Yeah,
hub,
it's we have a video router.
right?
We have 2 actually video routers, and then that stuff's going. Some of that stuff's going to the switcher. Some of it could be bypassed and just go directly if we
Yeah,
needed
yeah,
to.
great. Jake, what were you gonna ask? Sorry.
How many venues are you guys running on a Sunday morning
So Sunday, right now,
or
as far
over the
as my
weekend?
team, yeah, over the weekend, it's with 3 campuses right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this campus, Curry Ford, Michigan Street campus, which is towards downtown Orlando, and then our Red Bug Lake campus, which is north of here. Um, so yeah, that's our 3 main ones. We have our kids areas running. There's 2 main kids theaters, is what they call them, and then there's a puppet room that kind of does for preschool kids as well, and then our youth building, which they're managed. They have their own team running their stuff, and we're tech support for them. So if something catastrophic happens, like I know the infrastructure in there, like I just help design the infrastructure in that room, so I can go over and help with that. So, which happens less and less, but if something does happen, then I could be support for them.
Are
Yeah.
you guys resiing to all those other places, or what's your out?
Correct. Yep. Yep. We're using Resi, and we have the dual input, the dual output decoders on the end. So we drop the marker here, and they can see it over there, which is great. So we do a test in the morning around 7:30. Everyone drops a test in, make sure we're communicating, everything's working, and I do keep that system separate from our streaming system, like our online streaming system. So just in case something happens, I have another option. So, we use Boxcast for our regular streaming. They used to be Stream Monkey for us because they were local and they were in town. Known those guys for a long time. So Boxcast purchased them a couple of years ago. So they have the ability to like rewind, fast forward as well on their player.
Okay.
So if something were to go down with Resi, which it has probably twice in the last 7 years or so, we just pivot to the browser and they're ready to go,
Okay. So your
which is
primary is
good.
Resi,
Yeah.
and then Bosscast is your backup. Okay.
Correct. For their campus
Right.
connections. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then our like mainstream stuff is coming off of AWS Elemental here, and that's hitting Boxcast. It's hitting YouTube. It's hitting Facebook. There's also another Boxcast stream that's going for our Spanish stuff. So we run a secondary audio line that kind of has our normal feed, but there's a mic that ducks the normal feed, and you can hear somebody translating in Spanish, and that's going on our SDI lines 3 and 4, and that's on the Elemental. We can choose those audio channels on there to stream to another encoder for Boxcast, if that makes sense.
So when you're talking about Resi, you're broadcasting to your satellite campuses.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, so it's normally program feed with the audio. What's great about embedding the audio, especially with the Spanish, is on those campuses, we de-embed the audio, the Spanish audio as well.
Wow.
And then somebody in the room could be listening to it live, with the obviously with the delay of Resi, but like in the room live, listening to it in Spanish on a device because we're de-embedding it there,
Wow.
which is really
That's
neat.
neat.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's dive into so you were talking ProPresenter. So you run 3 different machines, and that's for
Hmm.
stability, and also that provides you redundancy too. So that if something does go down,
Yep.
you're not tied to just one. So how have you did you guys go to 7 pretty quickly? What was kind of that transition for you from 6 to
Yeah,
7?
we waited until the link was presented to us because we needed that connection. We didn't want to have multiple operators. But it's a way for us to. They used to call it master slave module back then with 6 or master control or something like that. In 7, what's cool about it is it can be a little tricky because once you link to devices, I think you. Oh.
Gotcha.
That's in the one position over there,
I gotcha.
and if you do it in the wrong order, it's going to be a disaster. So it's you got to make sure everything is in place, make sure that everything is you test everything. Obviously, we go through everything multiple times here beforehand. We actually play our videos and stuff and run lyrics during sound check in the
Yep.
morning on Sundays and Wednesdays before service. So it's just we waited a while for that feature before we moved to 7. And there's there's been some bugs where we've gone, man, was this the right decision? But they're slowly fixing them, and we've just worked around them. The macros thing was interesting. There's still some issues with it. We feel like for sure,
Steve
but
loves
they're gonna.
macros.
I
We've
do
spent
love
a lot
macros,
of
but
time.
I did get burned by them this past weekend, so I'm maybe not, and I'm not quite
Oh,
as
okay.
flaming on the
But now that
macros today.
Jonathan's here,
No,
Jonathan's here.
no,
Okay, cool. I
I
don't like
had a
macros.
catastrophic failure with the
Jonathan,
macros this
Steve
weekend.
loves macros.
Yeah, they're they're pretty horrible right now. And then there's what was the other thing we had an issue with? We had some stuff with the MIDI triggering a couple of weeks ago, and I just told the guys we spent I don't know half a day on it, and I was like, guys, just be done with it. Just listen to the music, and when you
Yeah,
feel it,
yeah.
just hit it. There's no point in fighting with this anymore. What was the other thing we've had an issue with? Just different things as far as like the way they've changed, some of the settings and getting people used to it. It's very intimidating for somebody coming over from 6, just because there's a lot of settings. I still occasionally do some outside show stuff, and I was used to some of that in PvP, which is their other product or one of their other products. But when you have these kind of settings and all these networking terms that people are not familiar with in the back end of a thing, it's very intimidating for a volunteer to look at and go, ooh, what should I click on?
Yeah,
Um,
I've always said that you need to have a good, and that's what I try to do from the start of any course that I've done is try to connect what ProPresenter 6 is to 7 here, because stuff
yeah,
just there's stuff in the similar spot, but you need to look at it differently. So the main center
mhm,
thing is the same content that was showed in 6, it's just blacked out now. But then connecting the different things, and then obviously the icons have all changed and they look really different. But yeah,
mhm,
the outputs will screw up. I mean, depending on how complex you can get real screwed up real quick because you
yep,
have to
yep,
know that you have to in essence create views to allow you to see everything because you don't inherently get to see everything. You can't just click one
yep,
button and it just shows you all your screens even like a Resolume or a Pro
yeah,
Video Player might do is showing you stuff on the bottom, but you can't see that. So and
yep,
then yeah, Shake, I love the macros because I've not really what I ran into this past week was a huge glitch where if you're changing macros consistently, if you're in a church that's stable and that you're just using the same macros every week, I've not had any issue with that. And it's been super helpful. But when you start talking changing looks and changing stuff, and potentially at a church like Jonathan's, where maybe the wall's changing consistently every quarter of how it looks, that could throw you like
Mm.
the issue I ran into yesterday where the macro didn't change, even though I had changed it in the global settings. That was a huge issue. So that's why you check things. And what happened yesterday was I got burned on something that I had thought I checked, and I obviously hadn't fully checked it all the way out into their room, and it was an issue. So um, there are still some flaws, and that's where, like Jonathan, and like what you're saying is check it at your run through, look at it as early as you possibly can with the team, and then if you got to diagnose something, figure out a
Yeah.
different solution for sure.
Yeah, I would absolutely, especially with all these software updates that are rolling out, like they just released something last week. Um, I think we're all used to like apps and things on our phones, and we're like, oh, there's this update, it'll be better. And it's like I'm always telling the guys, don't if it's working, don't
Yeah,
update it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
if you got to pull the internet cable, just do it. Like it's not worth it to have something go wrong. It was worse back. I feel like with 6, they would roll updates out like on Fridays. I'm like, why would you
yeah.
do that? Like the
Oh,
That was
Friday before,
horrible.
like Good Friday is not the day to
That's
roll out an
awful.
update. Yeah.
Yeah, I've said the same
So
thing you
just be
said.
careful.
If it's working, don't touch it. Now, there's been some times recently
Yeah.
where stuff starts to not work, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna have to update because I want to see if this fixes it, or you run into
Yeah.
you're trying to do something and there's this feature that you want to try, but that's where I've also said too, and you probably have preached this, like know how to revert back if you update and it like
Mhm.
doesn't work, and go back to whatever the previous version was. Like have that saved on your server and
Oh,
can
yeah.
easily revert it back. Um, so
Absolutely.
yeah,
Jonathan, is
Yeah.
your pro presenter people, are they
Mhm.
primarily volunteers?
No, actually, our main 2 are paid.
Okay.
We have a few that have come on and helped out over the years.
Mhm.
We kind of do that because there's a lot of, especially for the campuses, we prep a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
The guys really go through and do everything from countdown to, and they make the pro bundles with them, and then they
Mhm.
send them to the campuses, and so they just walk in and kind of make sure everything works. So that kind of level of stuff, it happens a lot of
Yeah.
times on a Friday, or it happens a lot of time on a Saturday. So they get paid to come in and do all that prep, or prep from home if they need to. Um, so we've done it over the years where we've had volunteers help with things, especially with like pastor's notes or things like that.
Mhm.
That's something that they can lock in on and do, which helps.
Well, that's great. Steve and I have talked on the show in the past about how far too often in churches that position is kind of relegated to a volunteer. It's almost like the lowest,
Yeah,
position on the pole, but it
yeah,
is super important. And
yeah, yeah. It's just as important as the sound guy or the
yeah.
lighting person, just because it's so public facing,
Yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
you just want consistency out of it. I know a lot of guys that'll pay their video director, and we actually don't. Like we have volunteers they direct our video. They
Mhm.
just know our style, and we keep them updated on things. But I think it's more of a problem if like the notes don't come up
Yeah.
on the right time, or the video doesn't play, or like
right, right.
those are way more vital things than taking the wrong camera shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You could people won't. But how many times you cut and probably how many cameras you have, the likelihood someone's going to remember a bad camera take
Yeah,
is probably pretty slim. When the pastor reads John
yeah,
13:1 and that doesn't show up anywhere, people are
yeah,
like, "Oh yeah,
yeah.
those scriptures weren't anywhere. Where were they?" So
Yeah. Or you're about to do a big missions
yeah,
offering and the video doesn't
yeah,
play, and it
yeah,
just yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you want to make sure those
yeah.
moments
Not
are
there.
distraction
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
So how's that work? So you said you were running 3. It sounds to me like based on you guys waiting for the control, you're running a primary machine that's controlling the other 2. So you don't. Do you have anyone
Yeah.
sitting at those machines, or do you guys just usually?
So yeah, we try to have 2 people kind of at the station. So we have one main person that can run all 3 at the same time. But we also have little things that are just not um full attention kind of thing. So like if they need to drop a marker in Resi, we don't want them distracted by that. Or, if somebody comes in and goes, hey, the Spanish translation sounds a little low, like I don't want them distracted by that. So we always have somebody that can float with them. They're putting the markers in, they're running pastor's notes, they can take over if they need to at any point. So it's usually two people at that station.
And what kind of machines are you running for are they the same machine across all three? Are they Mac Studios at this
No,
point? Mac Minis? What do you guys do?
yeah, this our center screen is Mac Studio, because it's driving a 4K
Yep.
output for the pixel density that we have on stage. And then our side screens are HD. They're just under 1920 by 1080. So that one's running on an older Intel Mac Mini actually,
Okay.
just maxed out. So that was the last generation of the
Yeah.
Intel Mac Mini. We'll eventually change that out. And then the other one is a basic, I think it's an M2 Mac Mini. Very basic. I'm sure it's like 8 gig of RAM kind of thing, but it's running fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point is because you spread them out, you don't have to buy,
Mhm.
like, I think sometimes that's a misconception. Well, I have to buy three Mac Studio. Well, no, like, what do you need for
Yeah.
each screen? So, like, the one screen is your primary running your big 4K display. Well, yeah, we want that to be super powerful and be able to do whatever we need to. But the stuff that's running a
Hmm.
confidence monitor, well, it doesn't need to be. It can run one screen and
Yeah.
it runs that fine for our pastor. And then the stuff that's running iMac, well, unless you're displaying in 4K, that's probably HD.
Yeah.
So thinking through that, and you can save yourself money on like, okay, well, I don't need to spend like I just need to get some Mac Minis and then a Mac Studio and connect them all, and then you're built for the ability to if something fails, if one of the smaller one fails, you probably could switch over to the Mac Studio and add another display for a day and get through, if you had to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think one of the things that people kind of do is they kind of go max on the computers, but you don't need to. And then even with like stuff like the monitor for the person operating,
mm,
right? Or like the confidence monitor, it doesn't need to be 4K out. It doesn't need to be a high pixel density
right,
output. So I made sure that on like these Mac Minis and even the Mac Studio, the operator view is 1920 by 1080.
right,
It's an HD simple monitor. You're only pushing the right amount of pixels that you need. It's far away from them
right,
anyway. It's kind of down in the desk.
yeah.
So like they're
They
not
just need
it's
it for
not up
reference. They
here where you
don't.
need to see
Yeah,
something. Yeah, it's a little farther out. So why drive so many pixels when you don't need
right.
to, and then you're just overrunning the computer when you just need
Mm,
you need to maximize the resources of that
right,
thing. And the biggest thing for video, and thank God we're at the point where we are in technology now, but it was always hard drive speed. People just didn't think about RAM. They didn't think about hard drive speed. It was like, hey, we have a spinning 5,400 RPM hard drive. And it's like, well, yeah, you're not going to drive an HD video smoothly for 20 minutes, Like it's the SSD stuff has really helped with all of that. And now on an internal for an M2 or an M3 or an M4, it's 2,600, gig, read back. It's insane now,
crazy.
or meg, maybe it's meg, but it's so fast now that you can run a 4K video without even,
Yeah,
you know,
with very very little
thinking about it.
models. So even just like looking at what do you actually
Yeah,
need to run what you're doing, and not
yeah,
overpaying
yeah,
just because it's the greatest thing, but actually
yeah.
finding what do you
Because it
need.
says pro.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it says
yeah,
pro on it, or it says
yeah.
studio on it. Yeah, you may not
Do
need
you
that.
guys? I'm assuming you guys use. I've been a huge proponent. I'm assuming you guys are using the DeckLink Duos, where you can shoot out SDI. That's something that I've always also recently preached to
Yep.
people is don't run it off of just the Mac Mini with the single cable out. I know that it
Yeah.
costs you a little bit. Maybe I found some enclosures that are a little cheaper if you need to save a little money from the Black Magic like recommended brand.
Yeah.
But spend the 600, spend the couple $100 on an enclosure because you'll set yourself
Hmm.
up for maximum like capability to do out of that machine, and you'll also correct me if I'm wrong, but those help to me. I felt like those help my machine. Like you're not powering another screen, you're powering an output, and so it kind of helps keep
Yeah.
that in balance a little bit. So if you're running a couple outputs, I found that machines that are running with that are a little better than running an actual physical HDMI out of multiple outputs of the machine. Have you guys
Mm.
found?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then, there's, you kind of want to test a lot of that stuff because, you are driving some of that
Yeah,
still as far as pushing the pixels of the black
right.
magic. But I feel like it does relieve a little bit for
Yeah,
sure. And then, simple things like labeling those cards, which are notoriously hard to remember which one is
they're
the one
stupid.
and the two and
Stupidly
the
hard.
three. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah, that's always good for
I've
sure.
actually thought of releasing, talk offline, business idea. Come out with like a sticker thing for churches that's on Amazon that you put over top that says, this is the port you
Uh,
don't use. This is reference. Don't use this one. And then
yes.
this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
one.
Reference.
And then
Exactly.
this, because the whole thing, Shake, I don't know if you've used them. Those entire cards don't go in sequential order. So it's one,
Yeah.
three, two, and then like it's one. Sorry, I'm not
Yeah.
doing it right. One, three, two,
Yeah.
and four. Like it's backwards. So like you would think, oh, port one, two, three, and four. It's no, it's port one, three, four, two, and four. It's switched. So like when you're trying to set it up, you're like
Yeah.
the first time you do it, I did it like 10 years, 6 years ago with an install company. We're like, what? Why is it coming out that port? And so it's crazy. So
Yeah. And then in the preferences, you can change them.
yeah.
You can combine ports. You can make one an input and one an
So when you're
output.
running alpha key,
So
you have to
there's,
run one and three as or two and four as tied, but you actually have to plug
Mhm.
two things out of them. But you actually can only like that takes away two ports, so you can't use this the other port. You have to send both ports with the same signal to your switcher. So yeah, that'll confuse people too because they're like, well, I have four ports and I said alpha. No, they're tied together, so you don't get to use that anymore. Like you got to come out with so it's just crazy.
Not
yeah.
just so you guys know, I have no clue. None of that made sense to
Cool,
me.
cool, cool. Well, next time we're together, I'll show
Yeah.
you my deck link card, and you can get a kick
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
it. But it's
I would just say start if you're gonna do something like that, start on a Sunday afternoon after
yes,
services,
yes,
and then you'll
preach it,
have at least a
preach it,
week to figure it
preach it.
out before the next week.
And if you know someone, call Jonathan up, call Steve up, call
There
call
you
call
go.
Shake up and
Yeah.
ask for our numbers. We'll get with you. But we
Yeah.
could potentially maybe even
Yeah.
send you our
No.
show
One
file.
three.
Well,
One three
don't
two
ask Shake.
four.
He obviously doesn't know what the
Yeah.
card is. So
You tie them.
yeah.
You can
Nice.
output. You do what
Car-
you gotta do. Alpha key. You
Jake,
know
did
what I
I
mean?
tell you there's a quiz after
Yeah.
this that
Boom, boom, boom.
you have to remember what John and I talked to him about? We're gonna quiz you on some stuff
Bring it.
afterward.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Usually when people ask me something in meetings, especially up on the executive team, they'll ask stuff, and then I'll respond in the way I'd know to respond, and then they go, "Oh yeah, yeah, we were thinking the same thing." It's always a joke. Like they have no idea what I'm saying half the time.
Yeah.
I was like, "That's why I don't talk."
That's why I listen and take it in because if I talked, you guys would be like not
Yes.
understanding what I'm saying. So, dude, well, man,
Yeah.
I appreciate too what you started off with. Like, I want to go look at that book, but I think that's a huge thing of like dealing with stuff effectively in the moment. And
Yeah.
just one thing you said at the start, man, like I think sometimes we treat our pro presenter operators, our audio guys, our video team, and then even executive, like we kind of all silo ourselves instead of seeing it as a
Hmm.
community thing. And I think sometimes the best things that I've ever seen executed are when design teams are connected with the person who's actually going to execute it in pro. Because then it's like, hey, I can
Yeah.
tell you, like, hey, well, we're only powering an HD screen. So there's no need for you to drop me a 4K blown up image. Like, I know you're using that for something
Yep.
promotional, but like, can you compress that down so that it's as streamlined as possible? Or, hey, video team, you guys are like,
Yeah.
I had an example. An administrative event came in and had a 15-minute countdown that was fantastic, and it was literally a 4K countdown, and so it was like 25 gigs, and they ran it at this event that I wasn't supporting, but they failed, and I was like, guys, like we're only
Hmm.
running HD screens in the room, like don't just I get it. You made it in 4K. It's fantastic. It looks incredible. Compress
Yeah.
that sucker down because if you can get
Yep.
that down, it probably will play the whole way through without a glitch. And so those of us who are in the
Yeah.
room, who are running, who are whether it's the video producer or the program operator, the audio person can speak to like, hey, in this room, here's something to keep in mind that'll help you make that like go over really well. And so I think it seems like your
Yeah.
team has a real good like connection of like working together to do that. And that's something that I would just I'd echo, and it's a good note for me to keep. Is like, are we keeping those lines of communication open to try to do that together, not trying to like, well, I created it and now you execute it, and that's disjointed,
Yeah. Yeah, and there's some technical things that, and we've talked about them. A lot of the table group stuff, we have offsites quarterly, so we kind of open up about things. And one of the things I get on the feedback a lot from my team is like, man, a lot of technical things, which is hilarious. Obviously, it's my role, but just knowing certain things, like obviously before the M processors from Apple, like on Intel, encoding a video in ProRes was better for the efficiency of the computer before they put the H.264 stuff into the actual stuff. So things like that, like knowing that kind of stuff, and then going, not just because like, hey, this file is just huge, but then explaining it to them and going, hey guys, when we play a video, a file like this in H.264, and this computer, it's working really hard to encode to decode that video,
Right.
and going, hey, if you're on ProRes, ProRes is a native video foundation on the Mac. It'll play. So like just having those conversations in a better way, and not just being like the typical tech jerk that kind of just goes, "Oh, this is so dumb. Why are you guys doing
Yeah.
this? This is so dumb."
It's actually
Like it's
explaining.
like, hey, take some
You,
time explaining to them. Like
that's
not
that.
every. Go ahead.
Sorry, you can finish.
No, you're good. I
It,
was gonna say, like, not every technical nerd is like reading the technical white papers for ProRes like me.
Right.
well,
Helping
what's
those guys.
funny? It's funny that you say that because I remember when I was on staff at Faith when I started, I was rendering everything as MOVs, and you're the first person that was like, hey, why don't you try MP4s and .264 whatever it is. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
H.264.
of course, of course.
That's
And
funny.
and I'll say this too about Jonathan on an organizational level. I was part of the Chodos ministry team when we needed help, even on a Sunday morning, it was often Jonathan that would come in to support. We did a weekly uh, chapel for the school for the school that's connected to the church, and it was often Jonathan that was running slides and stuff, and so I always appreciated your willingness as the media director to just be hands on and at whatever level you need it to be at the church.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, we're grateful for you, man, and coming on, and we'd love to have you on again and talk more. Potentially, I think
Yeah,
it'd be
it's been
cool to
fun.
have you on again, man, and maybe set up your system and actually talk through your computers and what you're doing. Because I think you mentioned
Yeah.
something key that, like, I pulled up and showed you guys how I connected my two computers. My two computers don't have the same libraries, and so it's actually not like translating. And so I think that's a key thing to kind of maybe even show in a future discussion of like how what some of the benefits of it are, which the benefits are you can control a couple computers with one person's click, but also some of the downfalls
Hmm.
of like if you change something in the in the flow, well, then that's going to really get you off. So yeah, I'd love to have
Yeah.
you on, man, again sometime soon to do that. And if you guys have questions for Jonathan or for us, like reach out to us, ProPresenter at churchvisuals.com is our email. Shoot that out to us, or you can comment in the chat in the comments below. We'd love to get that over to Jonathan if you have a specific question for him and his setup, or a question in general for ProPresenter. And really, the heart behind this is just to help you in your church effectively communicate the gospel visually and do that well each and every single week, just like Jonathan's doing at his church. So, man, thank you for coming on and jumping on with us on this Monday. It's your day
Yeah.
off, so you thank you, man, again for giving us a little time. I know those are special, especially when you're having to work
Yeah,
on an
no
LED
problem.
wall this morning, right?
Thankfully, it's fixed now. So after this, I'm gonna
Go
go
home and
home.
get a
But
nap.
Yeah,
it's
good for
been
you.
fun, guys. I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Well, Shake, you want to close us out? Could you just maybe just pray for Jonathan real quick and for Faith and
Sure,
their team, and just thank
of
God for him,
course.
and then yeah, man, we'll sign off after that. So
Yeah, God, we're so thankful for what you've done at Faith, what you're continuing to do at Faith. We thank you for Jonathan and for him hanging out with us. Pray that you bless him, bless his ministry, and continue to be with them. God, I'm so excited and so thrilled at all the cool things that are coming out of that church, and we pray for continued blessings and that they would impact the world in your name, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
man, see you, man. Grateful for you guys.
Thanks, guys.